Hello, and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg, and I am super happy that you're here. To ring in the last couple of weeks of this year, I'm going to give you encore presentations of some of my favorite interviews of the last few years. Some go far enough back that you might hear me call the podcast by its old name, The Creative Mindset. Today, Grammy Award winner, lead guitarist, and singer of the Blind Boys of Alabama, Joey Williams, joins me to talk about his life in music and the business of being a musician. He has incredible stories. This is a must-listen episode, and I hope you enjoy it.
A lot of what I play is improv, especially with the sitting in and stuff. That happens 90%. If I'm sitting in with somebody, it's 90% improv. I'm going off of what I hear and what I feel and what I hear the changes going and where I hear them coming back to and what I put there. So it's mostly improv what I do.
Hello, and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg. In the show, I interview innovative peak performers. I talk with entrepreneurs, business owners, and creatives who are pushing the envelope to work creatively and authentically. We explore how to cultivate innovative genius to achieve our visions to succeed. This week's show is brought to you by my book, Speak From Within. If you need to communicate better and leave your listeners riveted, you'll want to check the book out. And now, let's get to it. Hello, and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg, and I am super thrilled you're here. I'm also incredibly delighted to welcome this week's guest. Joey Williams is a Grammy Award-winning vocalist and guitarist. Since the early 90s, he's been part of the legendary gospel band, the Blind Boys of Alabama, and he's also played in other bands along the way, like with Robert Randolph and the Family Band. He's also a sought-after R&B session musician who plays with many of the world's other great musicians. I was lucky enough to meet him and his lovely wife, Monica, at the inaugural show of the Sophisticated Psychos experience here in New York City. So I'm honored to call him a new friend as well as one of the great guitarists it's my pleasure to know. I'm so thrilled to welcome Joey Williams. Welcome, Joey.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful, beautiful sunny day here in New York City. So I'm ridiculously pleased to be here. And I'm so happy that I'm getting a chance to chat with you. I want to thank you so much for being here.
Wow, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
You're so fabulous. So I want to start at the beginning. Okay. What got you started playing? What drew you to music? You're an artist, you're a creative soul. You could have gone other ways, I'm sure, but what was it about music that got you and started you down this road?
Well, I come from a musical family. My father was a musician. He's played guitar and sang, and he's had music all over the house, all around the house all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I started hearing music at a young age, and then I was banging on stuff around the house, banging on chairs and pots and pans, and my mother had to deal with that. So my father brought me a snare and a cymbal, and I was playing snare and cymbal. That was my drum set. And I was really into music. I just wanted to be like a musician or something, because out of the snare and cymbal, I would take every piece down. I would unscrew every part of the stand, the snare stand, and then I'll take the cymbal stand down, so make it seem like I'm doing so much and like I have a whole drum set. So it started back then. And then my father, later on, a few years later, got me a guitar and told me, I'm glad you play drums, because I used to go out and play for his quartet groups and his friends that were on quartet shows back in the day. I would bring my snare and cymbal, and I would be the only drum type thing, because back then we didn't have drums really. It was just like, guitar, just guitar and maybe guitar and bass or something like that. But the quartet groups back then didn't have drums really. So I would be like the drummer guy, little boy that's playing drums. So I would bring the snare and cymbal, and I would play for a few of the groups there. And later on, my father brought me a guitar, and he told me, drums are good, but there are a lot of drummers. So I need you, I want you to learn how to play guitar now. And so I started playing guitar after that. And at a young age. I guess about 8, 9, 10, or something like that, because I was doing the drum thing at like 3 or 4.
Oh, my stars.
So yeah, yeah. So I was like playing, standing up. I would stand up and play, not be able to sit down. And it went on in my family. My brother, same, did
Because
the
you were
same
too
thing.
short.
I got pictures of him too short to sit down. Yes.
Love it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
uh,
so,
do you remember when you were that young, when you were 4 or 5 years old and you're playing drums with, I can't believe it, with your father's quartet, did you ever have trouble like finding the beat? I mean, the drummer is the keeper of the beat. So, did you ever have trouble with that, or were you just able to figure out what needed to happen? Like, where did that, you can say it's a gift from God. That's one thing, but where did the musicality come from that allowed you at such a young age to be able to play, perform, and be in the pocket with a bunch of adult musicians?
well, like you said, definitely, without a doubt, 100% a gift from God.
Hmm.
Because, also, like you said, it's hard to do to go sit in, with somebody and play along with them. But I think having my father's background and his, genes running through me, I think that was a help, because I wasn't worrying about that once I got there, because once I left the house, going there, I knew I can play. I had already played along with um, groups on like their we had 45s and albums, and I would
Mhm.
play along with them. I would play that, and then I play old groups like the Swan Silvertones, and this, like, I would play along with them
Mhm.
and play along with all these artists, gospel artists,
Mhm.
like the Blind Boys and Nightingales, all these people, and I would just play, and I would be the drummer for them
Mhm.
at my house, in the basement. I would just be the drummer playing for all these, groups as a little boy. So when I went out with my father, you know, he knew that I could play for other people, and I would play for his group, his quartet group. And then they heard me playing with them, and then they would ask my father, could he play for us?
Huh.
And yeah, so he would go yes, and then I would play for the next group, and these were, Brooklyn, kind of Brooklyn quartet groups.
Oh, that's so fascinating. So word spread, word of mouth that you were someone that they wanted to play with. And I'm sure it was also such a wonderful novelty having this little boy being the
I,
drummer.
I guess so. Yeah. And I didn't even think about it like that. I was just so happy to be out and be playing,
Mhm.
and doing that. It was just so exciting to me. So I didn't think twice about it, but the drum thing, it didn't last too long though.
Mhm.
That just maybe a year or two I was doing that. And the next thing, I was, playing the guitar, and then
So
he had me doing the same thing.
so let me ask you a question. I started playing violin when I was 5 years old and played for years and then stopped and then took it back up again. But that when you're a child, I know that you were happy to play, which I think is amazing. But when you're a child, I remember playing the violin and it felt correct, it felt right to me. When you switched from drums and guitar, how did that feel? Did that feel right also? Or was there a transitional period when you had to go, okay, I have to stop this one way of making music and begin this other?
Well, yeah, I was a little taken back, because I was kind of loving the drums thing.
Mhm.
So I was kind of, taken back, but then he, not insisted, but he convinced me that, you know, you can still play drums and you'll be able to play drums. He said, but as far as like traveling, and I like to travel and play with people and stuff. He said, as far as that, you will be able to get more gigs and do more things if you can play guitar and drums. He said, and there's more drummers than there are guitarists.
Hmm.
He said, so you should definitely learn how to play, you know, bass and guitar too. So I would do it. And then it eventually grew on me. I would learn more chords. I would listen to those same albums, um, you know, back back then,
Mm-hmm.
that I was playing drums to. Now I'm playing the chords to them as well. And I'm listening to, old cats, Dixie Hummingbirds and Gospel Keynotes and Mighty Clouds of Joy, all those kind of artists as well. So I'm playing the chords with them.
Mm-hmm.
Where like a couple of years ago, I was playing drums. I was their drummer. Now I'm their guitarist, and I'm sitting in with them now
That's
from home.
incredible.
Yeah.
So, okay. And I know we're really in the weeds. We're in the nitty and the gritty of this, but there's something so fascinating to me about youngsters playing music, discovering it so early. And I know obviously guitar and music in general has shaped your life, but how do you think it shaped your childhood? Like how different was your childhood from some of the other kids in your neighborhood or some of your friends?
Well, music kind of, I don't want to say saved me, but it kept me from doing some of the things that I would have been doing that wouldn't have been as cool or, as good for me.
Hmm.
Like when guys wanted to go out and do mischievous things, I would be home trying to learn the new chords that, my father was teaching me, or learn the new chords. Besides the fact that I couldn't go outside and, hang like that anyway. It wasn't like, it wasn't like I can just, jet out there at like 11 or 12, and just go hang out with my friends and do whatever I wanted to do. Wasn't
Hmm.
like that. But even when I was like becoming a teenager and they were going out and doing things, I would be inside, and me and my cousin Cloud, oh Cloud we call him, but Kevin Cloud, he would stay in and we would be a band. And we even had my little brother, who was then maybe, I don't know, 10, or maybe 5 or 10, something like that. And we would, instead of him going out and playing with his friends, we would make him be the drummer for us and stay inside with us. And he had to stand up and play drums as well while he was playing. So yeah, it kept me out of a lot of things that I, could have been into, but music, it kind of took me in another direction,
Hmm.
which I'm glad about today.
Oh, absolutely. I completely understand what you're talking about. For me, it was musical theater, which I discovered in high school, and everything became about singing and musical theater, and everybody else was doing whatever it is they were doing. I was in the theater in rehearsals every day after school if I wasn't at work, so there was this focus to my life, and it made it a lot easier to keep going because that's what I wanted to do. And when you were a teenager, and some of the other things that were, like you said, you weren't going out and getting into trouble, but were there other things that drew you that you might have wanted to pursue that you didn't, or was music always it once you started down that path?
And really, music was kind of always it. I was hanging in the park around the corner from the house, and I would try to play basketball, and by mid game, I'm joking around with everybody, or maybe singing a song or something like that during the thing. So I was never, really good at sports. I like sports. I love sports, but I just wasn't as good at it as music.
Mhm.
So nothing really, nothing else really kind of stepped in the way and was trying to pull me away from music, or that I had any kind of passion for, besides music. To be honest.
It's funny because I really do believe that we are sort of divided between being specialists and generalists. And generalists are pretty good at a lot of different things, but they're not amazing or great at any one. And specialists are, you found the one thing that you are amazing at. And for you, it sounds like music is it. You're a music specialist, and that is, as far as your personality, that's how it is, and that's what it is. And I think that's so. In some ways, it's reassuring because your thing. You don't have any doubts
Right.
about it. So,
Yeah, that, yeah, I do love that. And I mean, I'm not saying that I wish I hadn't pursued other things in life, because a lot of those things, become important
mhm,
later on. But it's just, if I just, being honest, that was the main focus of, my life, getting into music, making new music, finding new chords, finding new avenues, going on the road, playing in front of people. My big goal in life was to have a dressing room to myself and do a sound check. Those things were big in my life that I wanted to do.
mhm,
And play a song where when I hit the intro, the people would know the name of the song, no matter who, not just my hit song, but anybody. If
mhm.
those things were, just big in my mind. So,
And they're, and it just keeps supporting my premise that this is it for you. This is the focus in many ways of your entire professional life. It's like, okay, that's what it is. And so that leads me to my next question. A lot of people keep a day job and then do a side gig with their music and then, maybe eventually make music their career. How did that flow for you? Did you ever have a day job, or did you just go straight music and that was the only thing?
I went straight. I mean, I was with my father's group as a youngster. I
Mhm.
turned I turned 11 years old on like a mini tour in Florida.
Mhm.
If, to me, it was a major, tour. It was just like a world a world tour.
Of
But
course.
yeah, so I turned. So I was 10. Spent the birthday down there in Florida for a week, and I turned 11 there. And I've been on the road kind of ever since. But once I once I got of age, I'm sorry. What was the question again?
Did you ever have a day job, or was music the professional part of your life the whole time?
Okay, right, right. From then, I was still in school then. So yeah, I was on the road. First, my father opened a store. It's called Joe's One Stop. It was in Brooklyn. Shout
Mhm.
out Ralph Avenue. We had a store. Yeah. So it was called Joe's One Stop, and
Uh-huh.
that was sort of my first job. But it was the store, so it was kind of our store, and I was kind of put in charge of it. And from there, I went on the road with the gospel group or the gospel airs, and from there, I came off the road and was kind of down south, down in North Carolina with my parents. And then cousin Kevin Cloud called me and asked me that I wanted a job with Slim and the Supreme Angels. And that was back in the 80s as well.
Uh-huh.
And so I hadn't worked yet, so I'm going to that job. And I did about a year or two with that band in the 80s, maybe 85 or so. And after that, I came home in 86 to New York. And that's when I got my first job because I was off, but I didn't have any. My jobs as a musician were always on the road,
Mhm.
so I didn't have any New York connections where I can just go and do my musician thing in New York.
Mhm.
Play clubs and all this. I had zero contact like that.
Mhm.
So I wasn't the one that's gonna just be a musician and no matter what and can't eat. So I got a job at what was I doing? A grocery store, like Food Emporium,
Mhm.
and I was there for I guess a year. So and I would do gigs and come back, and I wound up being the produce manager at Food Emporium, and I would go away and come back, and then got I got offer from the Gospel Keynotes, who I had was going out on the road and coming back, going out on the road, going back, and they offered me a job, and I went to the Bahamas with them, and from then I came back and told the Food Emporium that I was going to move on, and I did that. But before Food Emporium, I was it before or after? Somewhere in there, I was also working at Sears. So those are the two jobs that I had: Sears and Food Emporium. And I was going back and forth, like playing, and that was, I was signing autographs on the weekend, and then doing doing the produce during the week, or whatever it is, maybe sweeping up getting ready to open up, because I was wound up being a produce manager and in hardware at Sears. So those are the two jobs that I had. So I was never, afraid of working, because if I need to work, I work. But I'd much rather spend my life playing and making a living playing, and that's what I did after that. And that was back in, I guess that was the end of the '80s or '90s, something. No, it was the end of the '80s. I guess that was my last job, working maybe in the '90s.
You know what's really interesting about what you just said? You said, that was my last job working, because I would have much rather been playing music. And it sounds to me like playing doesn't feel like a job. It doesn't feel like work. Can you talk about that for a second? Like, what is it just like, this is just joy and I haven't worked a day in my life since then? Or what is the difference to you between the work of something like Sears and the Food Emporium and being a plumber or whatever, to being up on stage and playing and being on tour or whatever? Like, why is there a divide there between the two, that one is work and the other one seems to be play?
Um, um, it could be because I love it so much
Mm-hmm.
that may be the reason why I phrase it that way. But I didn't mean, I didn't mean it in any particular way. I just, that's just how I said it. But yeah, it feels like when I'm on stage, and I know it's work, especially now after doing it for all these years.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely know it's work. But I guess having to do something that I don't want to get up in the morning and do,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's not just to getting up in the morning, because I get up many mornings at 5 in the morning to catch a 7 o'clock flight.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the getting up in the morning, but it's different getting up in the morning and going somewhere that either you don't want to go, or where you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be,
Mm-hmm.
or doing something you don't want to do,
Mm-hmm.
being around some people you don't want to be with, and having no choice about it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so those things, that could be it. But my explanation for myself is maybe because I love it so much, and maybe it just doesn't feel like work, especially in comparison to, you know, as you would say, a regular 9 to 5.
Yeah, it is interesting. There's that saying, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
And I agree with that, but I'm really glad you said what you did, because it is work. Being a creative professional, which you are, it takes work. It's just the
Yes.
perception of it. Your perception, it sounds like, is that it just doesn't, it's work. And I know it's work, but it feels so wonderful to do, that it just doesn't feel like that kind of work. And I think that's fascinating, that as a creative professional for all these years, you you love it so much that, yeah, this is, if I'm going to have something I want to do, this is the thing. And I think that's amazing and wonderful. And I'm really glad you articulated that, because I think there are a lot of people out there who want to be creative professionals, who might do something like in their bedroom and might play guitar, but might be too afraid to really try for it. And I hope that that was inspirational to anyone who heard it, because it was inspirational to me as someone who's done music professionally for so many years. Uh, so I thank you for that. So the next question I have, and this brings me to my next question, is I'd love it if you would talk about how you started working with the Blind Boys of Alabama, because you went from these other gigs and this other way of doing music with your dad and other bands, and then you started this decades long association with the Blind Boys of Alabama. I would love it if you could talk about how that all came to be and what led you to joining this legendary band.
Well, um, like I said before, I had left my work going, I was with Slim and the Supreme Angels, and then I went back home, and then I got with Gospel Airs, went back home. Then I got with the Gospel Keynotes, went back home. And then
I see a pattern here.
you see a pattern, right? And then while I was home, I was there at home, just pining away, but still wanting to play. And then an artist, gospel artist, Shirley Caesar, I went out and played for her because she was in New York, and she offered me a job to go then. But then, I discussed it, with Monica, and then we just decided not to do that. But then within the same month, the Mighty Clouds of Joy called me, and I took that gig. And while on that gig, I was there for maybe a year, something like that. And while on that gig, we ran into the Blind Boys of Alabama a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Once at the Ravinia in Chicago, and I was amazed that they were able to follow us because Mighty Clouds of Joy, big in the gospel world. So I was amazed that they were able to follow us and close the show, and all the people were still there. So I'm looking at that, I'm like, wow, okay, they're still hanging, because we didn't hear a lot about them on that side of the quartet world.
Mm-hmm.
And we were with them again in Irvine, California. That's when their tour manager came to me and asked would I find them a guitarist, because they need a guitarist. And I said, okay, I'll do that, and I'll be back in touch with you. And I went back home and did some research on the guys. And long story short, I came back to them and said, I found the guy. And that was in 92.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I found the guy, and the guy's me. And when should I start? So I went out and did an interview. I mean, like an audition, but it was like
Mm-hmm.
a live audition.
Mm-hmm.
And my godmother Cora, we rode out there together to this church, and Blind Boys was playing at the church.
Mm-hmm.
And I went early, Cora and I, and said, we'll just be there early, and I do a little, meeting with them and talk. Well, that night they told me, well, not that night, before the show, they said, well, you can have the gig if you want, but you'll play tonight, as like an audition,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like a live performance, but audition. And I said, okay, yes. And I went back home. This is a side story. I went back home. I mean, I went back to the phone because we didn't have cell phones then. So I went and
Uh-huh.
found a phone booth, and I called Monica, and I told Monica, I said, well, I think I'm going to take the gig with the Blind Boys. And she said, okay, well then, what are they going to pay you? I said, well, they offered me $1,000 a week or a percentage. And she said, okay, all right, well, I guess, 1,000 a week, it's not bad. You want to be out there. I said, well, I took the percentage. She said, what? She said, oh, you have a family? Oh my goodness. We need, you got to be stable. And I said, yeah, but look, I know this thing. You're with Board of Education. I'm in music. I said, just, I'm gonna roll the dice here. And needless to say, it was the right move, because from then to now, it's been many more dates, and much, more than that could have ever not could have imagined. And her as well. So she took my word for it. So that's how I got with the Blind Boys at first in 92.
Wow. I love that, by the way, that you and she have so much trust built into your relationship that she went, well, okay. and and
Yeah, she
trust
said,
and
okay,
trusted you.
well, she did. I said, yeah, you know what? I said, you know what? You know how to handle that Board of Ed, because she was with them. She
Uh-huh.
just retired after 35 years. So you know how to do that. But I know how to do this, and I can see, where they're going. And like I said, I did a little research, and they're not just doing gigs and regular gigs. That's, I'm going to be worried about. They're going to be doing big things where I'm going to want a percentage of those big things,
Right.
not be stuck at the salary that I'm on. So, roll the dice. And like you said, she rolled it with me because, we've been a team for a while.
And that is a beautiful thing. It's really nice to have when you are, and she's a creative person in her own right, obviously. But when you are a creative, it's really nice to have a partner. It's so good to have a partner who supports your endeavors like that, and you support each other's, which is amazing. So
Yes.
so because I could talk about her all day. I mean, she was a principal in, no, seriously, a principal working in the Board of Education in the Bronx. So she's seen it all, and she's a tough, wonderful lady. So I think that also is, her having that strength and that grit and that determination probably helped you some. Can you talk a little bit about that, about how that worked out with you being a professional musician and touring a lot, and her being in the Bronx, working?
Well, l- luckily enough, thank God that she comes from a musical family as well.
Mm.
And not only just a musical family, but she comes from a family who grew up sort of the same way we did, listened to the same kind of music that we were. And right down to the quartet gospel. And it's not many people listen to quartet gospel. And
Mhm.
they know all the groups, those groups I was naming, earlier. She knew all those groups. They all grew up on those same groups, so she knew, a lot of what I was talking about when I would be talking. And if I would talk to someone else, they would have no idea what I'm saying and who I'm
Uh-huh.
speaking. So that was the beginning of it. And then, like I said, when we got together, we were sharing those same stories and some of those times, and we were like in the same circles when we were kids, but didn't know it, and didn't know each other.
Uh-huh.
So that made for a great relationship, and not having to explain as much, when I didn't bring home, because she was with me when, I wasn't bringing home, a decent amount, so she was understanding. And I was like, well, this one's a bad one, but the next one, it's going to be a good one, that kind of thing. And her working at the Board of Ed back then was our stability, because no matter what, that was happening. And if I fell short, she was right there, have my back. So when I came up, it was so easy to bring her on with me, because we were a team, like, from way back then. She understood the game. She understood the business. She understood what I'm going through with the traveling. A lot of times, her working for the Board of Ed gave her 2 months off. So she's been around the world too. She's been around the country, and she's been around the world. So
And now that she's retired, probably when we can travel again, uh,
yeah,
she comes with you, right? Now that she's retired, does
yes,
she? Ah, that's
mm,
lovely.
yeah, yeah. She comes. She makes a lot of trips with me now. But if it doesn't get back to the way it was, which it can't be exactly the way it was, but
Right.
she's had some countries and cities and states under her belt. We just before the pandemic, we were traveling. We were at Seattle. We
Mhm.
did a Christmas run out there, and just before we went overseas, she was there. But we were going to Australia and New Zealand, and she had been to those places with me and vowed never to take that long flight again.
And it is a long one for sure, for sure.
Yes,
So so then you began your association with the Blind Boys of Alabama, and you've played, for 2 different presidents. You've done all of these things. Can you talk
three.
about 3? Oh, I thought it was just Obama and George W. Bush. Clinton, I guess.
Yes.
Ah, okay. So yeah, sorry. I usually try to do my research better than that, and obviously did not did not
But
did not succeed as well as I'd like. So,
it wasn't an official White House visit. It was for the National Endowment for the Arts. And
okay.
so Hillary was heading that up, so he was just there.
Ah. Yeah. Oh, there's Bill.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, by the way, Jane Alexander and Hillary Clinton, they were head that up.
That's cool. That's very cool. So what are the highlights? Talk to me about a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, about the highlights of playing with the Blind Boys of Alabama. What have been the pinnacles of the long decades long association with this band for you?
Well, coming in the '90s, um, I didn't I didn't know as much about them on their worldly stage as that I should have.
Mhm.
I just knew them from like the quartets I was naming before, and
Mhm.
they were just one of them.
Mhm.
I grew up on knowing. But as I started traveling with them, like the other quartets, we would be singing at predominantly black audiences, and we would be at maybe civic centers or auditoriums, things like that, churches, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And with the Blind Boys, my first gigs, they were sort of in clubs and festivals, things like that. And
Mhm.
I had wasn't used to that kind of thing. And then as time went on, it was like I said, that National Endowment for the Arts thing came about,
Mhm.
and this was sort of kind of when I first got with them. And we went to the White House. That's when Monica was there too, and we did the sound check and everything. And between sound check and showtime, the tour manager came to me and said, "I have some good news, and some other news." But they said, "What?" Well, we're getting um, $10,000 for this award, and we would give you 1,000. But the only way that you're going to get, everybody has to have on a uniform, the suit, and this
Mhm.
is the suit we're wearing. And if you have one of these, you know, you'll get your split. So I didn't know if he was playing. I didn't know at the end, but Monica and I, we were in DC. Monica and I hit Georgetown. And I mean, we were all over those streets looking for that same color suit, shirt, and that's all we needed was if we can find a suit and shirt, we'd be fine. And sure enough, we found it was a teal green suit. And we found the exact suit between
Oh,
those.
it's
Yep, it was only 2 hours in between sound check, and we had to be back because security and all that around the White
right.
House. So we only had 2 hour window. We drove to Georgetown and went shopping and found it and pinned it up, ironed it, and sure enough, we had it. And I brought the 1,000 back to the room, and we were all excited. Yeah, so that was one of the big time. That was the first time ever being in the White House, and then obviously we went back again for George Bush and for Obama, where President Obama, both of them was exciting because President Bush was like kind of nicer and more down to earth than we thought. They were joking around. He was joking around with Clarence and Jimmy about posing with his wife, with Laura. It was like, hey, I got my eye on you down there, things like that. And then with President Obama, when we did that, as we were taking pictures and when we were leaving, we're shaking hands, and I reached out my hand to Michelle Obama, and she said, "No, we do hugs here." And
Oh.
yeah, and I was like, "Oh my God, is anybody watching?" Is the camera rolling? Oh my God, I can't believe it. So yeah, so we did that, and we actually performed. We performed on stage that night, and to see him and his wife and his mother-in-law and the two children, standing up and clapping and getting into it, it was that's been a big thing. And that the White House that day, I think we were there with like Bob Dylan, and John Cougar Mellencamp, and it was quite a few of them
Mhm.
there with us. So that was exciting in itself. But there's been so many playing with the people on stage different artists. That's just a list of things with Peter Gabriel, like opening for Peter Gabriel and actually performing. You know, Peter Gabriel actually came backstage on my birthday in New York, where the Nets play, where they used to play in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And we're at that arena, and we're backstage on my birthday. When we're coming on stage, he's telling the people, and he said, and today is Joey Williams' birthday. I'm like, oh, 20,000 people. I was like, screaming for my birthday, and he's the one who's saying it, Peter Gabriel. And then
Wow.
yes, and that wasn't enough. When we came off stage, we were all excited about backstage. I have my sisters there. My family's there, and he comes backstage rolling a cart. And it's like him with a birthday cake on it with the happy birthday. So now everybody was singing happy birthday to me backstage, led by
Peter
Peter Gabriel.
Gabriel.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So
Oh,
all of
wow.
these, singing with Willie Nelson on stage with Willie Nelson, Tom Jones, and I'm like the band director, so I'm like one-on-one with them, like telling them what verse they should sing. I'm telling Stevie Wonder what verse to sing and where to play his harmonica. I mean, those kind of things I would have a chance to even be in the company of those people maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But not only that, but I'm kind of directing them, like when other bands, like, these big bands like Preservation Hall, and different ones, I'm directing them. Paul Schaefer, when we were on, like back in David Letterman days,
Mm-hmm.
Paul Schaefer and what's her name, Pam, I think, they sat in with us.
Mm-hmm.
He played organ with us on People Get Ready. It's like I grew up watching David Letterman every night and watching the band and looking at those guys, just loving those and idolizing them. And then now he's playing with me, and I'm telling him, no, not that change, this change. Oh
Amazing.
my goodness, those things. So things like that, man. It's just just I can't even, like I said, so many of those different occasions with so many different artists. I just don't know where to begin and end.
Ah, it sounds absolutely incredible. And what's interesting is what you just said. Really, it reminds me about something about myself. I am uh I am uncomfortable meeting my idols unless we're on an even playing field. Like if we happen to meet at a party, or if we're both professionals in the same situation. But otherwise, I don't want to ever fangirl at somebody. I don't want to go, "Hi, I really love your work."
Right.
And so it's interesting that what you just said about, you grew up idolizing the guys on the band on the David Letterman show, and then suddenly your peers,
Right.
you're working with them, and that must have been quite an experience to be there and to really to be like, yeah, this is how we do things, and this is, let me help you. And you were able to help Paul Schaefer sound better, and I think that's amazing.
Unbelievable. And I also played along with them as well.
Ah.
I sat in with them at home many times too.
I love it. You were their guitarist.
I was before they knew it.
Right. Well, sometimes it works that way. So I know that you have focused a lot on gospel music, but do you, obviously, because you sat in with Paul Schaefer and the band, as it were, on when they were on TV, what other types of music do you play?
I can play all kinds of music.
Hmm.
Play blues. Play a little country. I'm not a real jazz guy. Play some folk. I just play guitar. So whatever, like if I'm in a genre and I'm somewhere and we're, like I have been many times, and we're just picking along, or somebody asked me to sit in, I can kind of sit in and adjust to whatever, and whatever they're playing and
Hmm.
whatever style they're playing, because that's how I grew up. I grew up, I guess, maybe from sitting in at home. Maybe
Hmm.
that's it. But people would call me
Hmm.
up and, would play with them
Hmm.
just anytime before I knew anything about like like coming up to sit in, like, like we do famously now. People come and sit in with people. Well, before that, this is what I do. But they would hire me to come with no rehearsal. I'm not with their band or anything, but I'm at a show, the same show they're on,
Mm-hmm.
playing with the band that I'm with. They would ask me to come play, and pay me to play along with them.
Mm-hmm.
And this what I used to do on the quartet circuit for years.
Mm-hmm.
All of these bands I named before, like the Violinaires, the Swanee Quintet, Jubilees, Tommy Ellison, Five Singing Stars. I mean, the who else? I said the Gospel Keynotes, my cousin Joy. I said those. So all of those, Darrell McFadden and the Disciples, the Sons of Glory. all, all, I mean, there's a host of groups. My father's group was the Northern Heirs, is where I started, in the beginning. So I would do all that, and all of those groups, I would be on shows, and they would just ask me to come up and just play for them, out of nowhere with no rehearsal and stuff. So that's what I was accustomed to doing. So when I was able to do that, when I first got with Robert Randolph, we were playing in Boston, and the Blind Boys were in Boston, and Robert Randolph and the Family Band, they were in Boston, but they were playing much younger crowd
Mm-hmm.
and much later. Our gig was at 8 and done by 9:15.
Mm-hmm.
His gig was starting at like 11:30
Ah.
or something like that. So we had just did the Higher Ground CD
Mm-hmm.
recording together. So we had played together, at the studios, but not after that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went over to his place and I said, well, which song do you want me to sit in on? And he said, you know what, just come up from the beginning. I said, from the beginning? I didn't know their show. I didn't know none of that stuff. Yeah, just come up from the beginning. And I played the whole show. And from that day on, I was kind of with the band. Once we got together again,
Mm-hmm.
promoting the High Ground TD, I would come out and play with them as well. And then that started a whole thing. And that was back in 2002. And from that day to this one, I've been with them. And that's like those are my two, like, really steady gigs.
Wow. Okay, I have so many questions. So, okay. So someone invites you to come and sit in. Do they give you the keys, or do you just automatically know? Is there like, oh, this is the genre that we're playing in, and we're going to be playing in these keys pretty much, or like you just happen to have a huge repertoire? How does that work?
Well, back then, they wouldn't give me the keys, but before each song,
Mm-hmm.
if I would get the keys from them if there was time. If
Mm-hmm.
not, the song would begin and I would find the key because I play by ear
Okay.
mostly. So the song would begin and I would find the song, and then I would hear the changes. When the changes go, I'd hear the changes and go to the changes
Uh-huh.
with them. And back then, some of those with some of those groups I was talking about sitting in with, I knew some of their songs,
Mm.
right? And a lot of them, the ones I sat in with, it was an honor and a privilege, for me to even, be on the stage with them, and I was idolizing all of those groups I named
Mm-hmm.
and more. Um, so I would already know a lot of their songs anyway, and I would just be playing along with them and adding, I guess, a little flavor to it.
Mm-hmm.
I had no particular lines. I wasn't doing like the horn line or the string lines or the piano, nothing like that. I would just play whatever I wanted that I think, fit.
Mm-hmm.
And just so happened, they liked that, and that's what they kept hiring me for, to put that extra thing, you know, to what they're doing.
Right, that extra flavor,
The
that
extra
ex
flavor.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, I mean, it is a spice in that way because you weren't overpower anything. You were you were adding to it without being too much, and
Right,
that's a
right.
real major talent and skill, I think, 'cause there are there are lots of people who will join in and sit in and be like, I'm the star.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
And that can be kind of challenging because you're like, and all of a sudden the song's gone into a direction we weren't thinking it was going to go. Uh,
Right. No, that happened. I've been in bands where I've been the guy to come in on the side, but then there's another guitarist that's already there.
mhm.
So, and I would notice that instead of playing, just rhythm, you know, he would start playing rhythm and lead, and he just started playing a lot more stuff.
Mm.
You know, just I guess that kind of thing. So you run into that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
You know,
And music is a dance in that way. You really have to know who's leading. Otherwise,
right. hmm And I'm always out of the way, but uh, people maybe they're just I don't know.
it's in the creative process. I think whenever you're collaborating, it becomes it really it's going to have to be a conversation. Like when you're
Always.
playing, it's got to be a conversation. Otherwise, it can devolve into cacophony. So I
Mhm.
want to I want to ask you something about gospel music before we move on, because there's some again, I don't want to, I know you have a life to get back to, but I'm like, I want to ask you more questions. So is there a more traditional sort of gospel music versus a more modern sound, or is it basically, well, basically I guess the question is, how has the sound of gospel music evolved over time?
Well, it has evolved, and there is still a traditional gospel style, and there's a contemporary gospel style, but then there's many different styles of gospel
Mhm.
now. I mean, as far as like rap, there's gospel rap. There's um, heavy metal gospel.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's symphonic, gospel. There's so that everybody has their own kind. Not everybody has their own kind. There are different genres in the gospel music itself.
Mhm.
So the elevation, I don't know. But it's always been sort of contemporary. You had people like Andre Crouch back in the day. Andre Crouch and the Hawkins family and stuff like that. And then right along with them, you had you know the Dixie Hummingbirds and Ronnie Clouds of Joy and Blind Boys and Swanee Quintet. Those things, people like that. Then you would have Shirley Caesar and the Caravan. So there's always been different kinds of music with the Brooklyn All Stars, you know, and James Cleveland. So there's different. Because one was singing like with choir, and one is singing is like with a hip slapping type of quartet thing, and
Mhm.
then one is singing like an R&B type of with an R&B type of feel,
Mhm.
but it's always, but everybody always finds a way, and then everybody's talking about the same thing,
Right.
so and that yeah, so that's what now traditional, it sort of lost its way as
Mhm.
far as radio, you know, wasn't getting a lot of radio play and still not like quartets, no radio plays, just kind of one kind of set music, gospel music, and that's whatever is picked. Same thing with all the popular music now. Seems like whoever's choosing the music, they choose it, and that's what's going to be heard.
Mhm.
You know, on the radio. Period.
Mhm. Mhm.
So but the music is still going on, and like different uh, forms of gospel still going on. You just got to find it.
Well, it's interesting with YouTube and various other platforms. You can find anything. You
Thank
can find so much, such a variety, and you can keep enriching your musical world by listening to so many different kinds of music, and different kinds of gospel, like you said, different types of devotional music. I don't
you.
I don't know if you have an answer for this, but what's the difference between gospel music and spirituals?
Um, I don't know the difference between. I mean, spirituals seem like to me. I mean, the difference that I can um, come up with was just like the age. You know, I don't know of spirituals of today.
Mm,
You
mhm,
know, I think spirituals were more like speaking uh, of the pain, sort of what's going on,
Mm,
and the gospel sort of was like, you know, good news. It was like singing and celebrating, or it was just spreading. I think spirituals were done and created out of the pain, and I need you to hear this because
hmm
this needs to be heard, and this is what I'm feeling type of, rather than gospel. I think it's singing about our Lord, or singing praises,
hmm
more or less of praise. I mean, that's me, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to look it up. Uh,
It's an
although
interesting
you got me.
it, it's an interesting question, isn't it? Because I remember when I was in school, I sang a lot. We sang like good news, good news, the chariot's coming. I remember, and I'm going to sing when the
Hmm.
spirit says sing, those kinds of songs. And
Hmm.
they were referred to as spirituals as opposed to, um, let's see, ride the chariot, some of those songs, they
Hmm.
were all described as spirituals. They were not described as gospel. And so it's an interesting question to ponder, like which, how does what we refer to music as change over time? And I think some of it is who's playing it, like the musicians playing it, but also some of it probably is the DJs on the radio get to sort of decide uh what is going to be played. So and then that might drive what musicians tour and how shows are done. Does that make sense to you? Like, which do you think drives which? Do you think the musicians playing the music drives who gets to tour, or does the audience drive the exposure, or do the people on the radio or other places drive who gets more coverage?
I think the people on the radio
Mm,
drive who gets the coverage, because it's easier to just turn on the radio and hear what's going on. And what goes on the radio is what goes on everywhere else. I mean, the hit that happens on the radio, that's what's going to be heard on TV if you use it in a commercial. If you license that out to a commercial, that's the song they're going to use, the ones that's on the commercial, because it's a hit song. It's big. Now, in order for you to find the other songs that you like, you're going to have to put some effort into it and go, go download it, go look it up on YouTube, you know, go purchase it. You're gonna have to have your own system going on. Just the radio is right there, and it's easy and
mhm,
it's driving. But not saying I'm, with that, because I don't like being told what to listen to, and and being led that way. And I like, a wide variety of music. I do.
mhm,
So, but it just seems like I just don't know how are we, choosing what's going to be a hit and what's not.
mhm. That's interesting. Yeah, I've never in my life thought of what you just said as a thing, but it absolutely is a thing that when you listen to radio, you're being told what to listen to. Somebody else is deciding that for you. That
Yeah.
is, you've just opened my eyes to something that, and I used to be a DJ. So so
Right.
so but I remember even as a DJ, we had only two our choices an hour of what we could play. They were our own that were our own choices among the songs that were in the playlist. Everything
Right. I
else
was
was
going to ask you.
prescribed.
I was going to ask you now. Did you just pick all the songs that you played on the radio,
Not
the
at
ones that
all.
you liked? Oh,
No, yeah, no,
yeah.
not at all. There was a list, there was a playlist, and the playlist
Right.
had to be played, but two times an hour, you got to choose something among the approved playlist. And if you are a rock station, it's different than if you are an R&B station or a country station or an oldie station. There's still an approved playlist, and that's what you play. And then you get two options an hour of songs among the playlist that you get to play. But everything else was you're going to play this, followed by this, followed by this, followed by this. So
Right.
it
Not
was
not even the artist, get to choose
yeah, and
what song they want you to hear. They
yeah,
don't.
and
It's not even up to them.
yeah, that's so fascinating to me. I started being a DJ when I was in high school, so many, many years ago. And I never thought of what you just said. So I'm so grateful to you that you pointed that out. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Somebody else is telling you what to listen to. So,
Yeah,
so being an explorer of music makes a lot of sense, that if you want to see people live, or if you want to learn more about the kinds of music that you want to learn about, you're going to have to get down and dirty with it and really get into the exploration. So
that's
thank you
right.
for that, Joey. I really appreciate that. So I wanna switch gears a little bit, if you would. I'm always curious about improv. When you're performing, how much is there that's all prearranged? You've arranged the songs, and this is how you do them. Versus, how much room is there for breath and improv in what you're doing, or is it pretty much what the pocket is and that's what you play?
Um, a lot of, especially me, a lot of is what I play is improv,
Hmm.
especially with the sitting in and stuff.
Hmm.
That happens, 90%. If I'm sitting in with somebody, it's 90% improv.
Hmm.
I'm going off of what I hear and what I feel, and what I hear the changes going, and where I hear them um, coming back to, and what I put there. So it's mostly improv what I do. Now, when I'm playing with somebody, same thing with sort of the same thing with Robert Randolph, the Family Band. Um, there's a basis, but then that whole gig is improv. It's a lot of fun, and we got the basis of the song, but then it can totally take on a life of its own and become a whole nother song. And then we would totally do a song where we've never done it before, and we just make it up on stage. It's just he'll start playing something, and we'll start playing something, and next thing you know, we're doing a song. So a lot of it's there. With the Blind Boys, most of it is kind of set. The songs are set, and how they're gonna be sung, but the lead vocalist, they have free range, and they will say, do something that's off the script.
Mm,
They're saying, they're singing the same song, but they can lead it in a different way.
mhm,
Same background is going to be mostly the same, but in that background, maybe one of the choruses, somebody's going to go, ah, and leading into the next round of it, so, something like that.
mhm,
Or maybe we go extra round because we're really feeling it. Or if
mhm,
somebody's doing a solo, we'll go extra round on the solo because it's feeling real good, or something like that.
mhm.
Or Jimmy will call a song that we haven't done before because he's feeling it, and we'd have to play it. So, with Blind Boys, it's more, 60-40 improv. With Robert Randolph and the Family Band, it's like 80.
80% improv. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was doing a gig. I was singing Jesu Joy at a wedding, and I was playing with a band. I was singing with a band I'd never played with before, and I was just coming in to do the vocals. And the pianist messed up a little and played a whole bunch of extra measures that he wasn't supposed to play. And that song just repeats and repeats and repeats. So
Mhm.
so I'm singing and I'm going, okay, all of a sudden I'm having to repeat part like three bars of a verse, because then he realized his mistake. And it was this, how are we going to navigate it? And we're in a church full of 300 people, and we had to navigate it on the fly. And so it was really interesting. We all sort of had to trust each other. And it sounds to me like that's a lot of what happens when you're on stage, is that you just trust the other musicians that you're with, and also listen like crazy. That's, listen like a hawk, if you will, to what's happening and what you can anticipate. Can you talk about how that works a little bit?
Well, yeah, you do. You lean on the other person, especially if you know the person, if you know the musician you're playing with. That's a whole nother story. That's what you want. Someone that like I play with musicians that all I have to do is like look at them,
Mhm,
or drudge the shoulder, and they know what's coming next, or lean and I can lean that way, and I was like, oh, this is a passing chord, or that kind of thing, or
mhm,
think that. So you trust that they're gonna be there, and hear what you're saying
mhm,
without you telling them.
mhm,
So having a lot of trust is very pivotal in that. Now, once we do the scariest thing about that and improv and not being so structured when we have to play with an orchestra. You
Mm.
know, when we play with a band, a house band or something that's written out our music, and
Mhm.
we're just there. You know, that we did Carnegie Hall with the Roots.
Mhm.
They were like the house band,
Mhm.
and they're playing, but they got it all written down. So if we go an extra measure, it's throwing everybody off.
Right.
But some bands can adjust to that.
Mhm.
Playing with the Philharmonic or Symphony Orchestra is the most scary because you miss that, line, or there is no doing like I'm just gonna say it one more time and just do it. No, no, you're not. So
Absolutely.
no. So those are the scariest time because we've had to do that many times, and the guys weren't used to, like if even if you skip a beat,
Mhm.
everything is thrown off.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we have to trust. They have to trust me, as they're singing, to not let them go astray. Even if they start on the wrong timing, they trust me to go. And no, to overshout, to take over that line
Mhm.
and put it in the right place, and then
Mhm.
they would continue on.
Right.
So
Yep.
they have to, so they have to have the trust in me. So we trust is a major, factor
Mhm.
in that.
Oh, absolutely. And get back to the one. Just get back to the one.
Just
Find the
get
one.
back to the one. Yes. I mean, and it's so scary because, they're from the old school. So now they're not counting like that,
All right.
they're not, so, you know, they just know how the song goes,
Right.
and how it feels. And I mean, they're counting on the inside, but not, you know, where if the count is off, they know they have to start on. No, if the count is off, they just keep going
Right.
and everybody catches up.
Right. Because that's what you got to do. Yeah,
That's
no,
what you got.
yeah, and it's again that trust and it's almost a flexibility, a fluidity to the music then that you sort of have to go, okay, so I'm not going to be doing what I thought I was going to be doing now. I have to do something totally different and make it work and make it look and feel seamless, which is a challenge when you're playing with a number of other people. But
Right.
I want to ask you something that I got to watch you play up close and personal at the Sophisticated Psychos experience. And in watching you play, I felt like you were both there and not there. And I wanted to know, where do you go when you're playing? Because you didn't feel like you were all there. You were somewhere else. Do you understand what I mean?
I do. I do. I've been that way uh, a couple of times. I'm playing. Sometimes you lose yourself in a particular song or a particular melody or a particular chord structure, and it's feeling good to you. I remember playing my first acoustic recording,
Mhm.
and this was with one of my local groups from New York. We came up together,
Mhm.
and they're called Darrell McFadden and the Disciples, DMD.
Mhm.
They're still going right now. So, but back then, but yeah, we all came up locally together from New
Mhm.
York, and I was in the booth recording,
Mhm.
and they had the lights down and stuff like that. But then midway the song, I didn't realize, where I was. I forgot they were all there. You know, I forgot, that I was in that studio doing that for them. I was just playing that song,
Mhm.
playing lines. This is my first time on acoustic, but playing it like it's like I've always, like it's my 100th time,
Mhm.
feeling so comfortable. And I was away from there. I
Mhm.
wasn't there, but I was loving it so much. And then when at the end of it, came back, and I couldn't even remember what it was. Not remember, but didn't realize
Mhm.
as I was playing it what I was playing.
Mhm.
So that was one of my first times of leaving where I was. And at that show with the Sophisticated Psychos, that happened too, because it was just music going on.
Mm-hmm.
and I was kind of into what was going on at that moment, and the chord changes, and me trying to play. I was saying something and singing something through the strings at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it wasn't. I wasn't just jamming at that
Yeah.
particular point.
Yeah, yeah, it didn't feel like watching you, it didn't feel like it was just jamming. It felt like something else was happening, and I'm grateful that you sort of elucidated what it was, because I was watching him like he is just not here right now. Okay, good,
Yeah,
good
I
to
didn't stay
know.
long. But I left. I didn't stay
Yeah.
long, but I came back.
But you did, obviously. And that's the thing. I mean, you're a master at what you do, and you trust your own body and your own musical spirit to be able to do that, to let the spirit of the music move you, which it takes a very long time to get to that point. I think, to get to the point where you can go, I just trust myself as a musician, and I can leave, if you will, but the music will still be flowing because it's so much a part of me, and I'm so much a part of it. And I think that's an important distinction, that you don't just do that. I think the first time probably it happens to you, and then after a while you're like, okay, I can relax into it.
Yeah, right.
So I am curious, as a master musician, how much do you practice? How much do you play every day?
Well, now a little more than usual,
Uh-huh. 'Cause
but I have no choice. No, I'm
right.
home a lot, so I am playing a lot more, and I'm teaching now, so I have to play a lot more than I was on the road. Because on the
Mhm.
road, depending on the tour, I was playing every day anyway, whether I
Mhm.
was, you know, um, wanted to or not, whether I was practicing doing different things or playing my same thing. But I was at
Mhm.
sound check playing, and then I was at the show playing.
Mhm.
So on the road, I play enough to not have to practice, all during the day. But yeah, I
Mhm.
practice average. I don't practice as much as I should. That's for sure. A lot of my guitar contemporaries will tell you that. But now I'm getting better, guys. So I'm home practicing a lot more than I have been.
That's so funny. I'm in my studio right now, and I'm looking at my guitar, which is looking back at me accusingly, because I have not been playing as much as I would like to play too. Uh and yeah, when you're on tour, you're obviously playing every night, all the time. That is such a beautiful way of, like my husband said, and I were talking, you remember Rich, he and I were talking about getting in shape, and he's like, the best way I like getting in shape, when it doesn't feel like I'm trying to get in shape, when I'm just running around so much and riding my bike all over the city, and then all of a sudden I'm in shape. And
Right,
then I'm like,
right.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
it, because you're playing, you're doing
that's me.
gigs. Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
I swam yesterday, because swimming doesn't seem like I'm exercising.
Right. Well,
But it's a great exercise, though.
yeah, you're playing in the water. So I wanna ask you, yes, a few more questions, and I thank you for giving me so much of your time. Um, this is an unusual question. As a musician and as a creative, I think you see the world differently, and I would love to sort of ask you about how you see the world. How do you imagine you see the world differently than someone who is not a professional musician, or someone who's not pursuing a creative life? What do you think is the difference between someone who is pursuing one and someone who is not?
Oh, the difference, how we see the world differently.
Mhm. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, no, not really, because the way I see the world, because I don't know any other way.
Yeah. I know I'm asking you to split into 2 people right now, so it's
It's like I wonder how this person would see it.
yeah.
Um, I do. I don't know if this is the reason why, but I see everything positive. I mean, I always see a lot of positive
Mhm.
in things. You know, I don't know if that's because of my musicianship or or my artistry. I don't know if that's the reason, but yeah, I see. I'm always optimistic. Always see the brighter side,
Hmm.
the more positive side. And I think that first before other things.
Hmm.
And I know people who are totally opposite. The
Hmm.
first thought would be the negative thought, or if this person comes up to you, he can't be up to any good,
Mm.
or if I offer you this, then something must be wrong with it, or different things like that. They said it was going to be sunny, but I don't know.
Hmm.
That kind of thing. And I'm the guy that's like, well, it's probably going to be sunny, or he's probably cool, unless I see something that tells me different,
Right.
or so things like that. So that's the only thing I can see, but I can't blame it on being an artist or being creative and not being. So I don't know.
Hmm. But it is an interesting thing to think about, that you're more open to possibilities, and it's possible that it's because, in part at least, because you're an artist and a musician. And
Could be.
there's another thing that I want to talk to you about music real quickly. Music to me is the universal language. You can be dropped anywhere in the world, and if you can play music, the people around you and you will have a way of connecting and reacting to each other. And so, as part of the Blind Boys, you've traveled, as you mentioned, all over the world. How different is it when you're playing in a place where you and your audience don't speak the same language, as in, you don't all speak English or whatever, versus when you do? Is there a difference? And if so, what do you think it is?
um it's not much of a difference.
Okay.
The audiences, they react basically the same. you know the people that speak English, um they may like interact with the talking part of it, or laugh at the joke Jimmy or Clarence, or whoever may tell,
Mhm.
things like that. But for the most part, the music, they all react the same, and they all feel it the same. There's places we go, like you said, when they don't understand what's going on, they don't understand a word we're saying, but you can tell they feel it. There are places we go, like Morocco, or different places, Lebanon, where the religion is Muslim, and they asked us not to say certain words, Jesus, or certain words that they asked us not to say. And
Mhm.
of course, old school, especially back then, Clarence, if you didn't want us to sing gospel, you shouldn't have called us, that kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
So he's like, so he's singing. So, but they get into it. There's no troubles, and everybody's on their feet. They stand there, invite us back. We've done, Fez, Morocco a couple of times, and
Mhm.
we've been back to these places. And in Japan, and one particular night, we came off stage and we were backstage after we finished. The house. We really did good, and they let a couple of the people come back, and this one young lady was like crying, and she was speaking in Chinese, or no, Japanese, and we got somebody to translate, and she was saying, I don't know what it is, but I'm feeling, I can't, and Clarence like, well, we know what it is. So it's always good. So I don't know if every artist is like that, but as far as we go, that's how it goes. We're received so well by so many different languages and so many different people, so many different countries. I can tell that I can't tell the difference really from the English speaking and non, and American and non.
Yeah, that's so lovely. And it really is music communicates no matter where you are, and I think
No
that's,
matter where.
yeah, that's such a beautiful, wonderful concept. It will speak to people no matter where you are. I want to switch gears just a little bit again and ask you, what is the best first step in learning the guitar? What if someone found an old guitar in their attic? What's the best thing they can do to start?
Um, Learning how to tune it.
Make sure it has all the strings.
Yeah, of all the strings and finally nowadays you can do that. You can tune it because there's the new technology. So it's a lot easier now
Hmm.
than then. But we had a pitch pipe,
Hmm.
which we tuned with. But my father started me with an A chord, and that's how I got started with like a regular A chord
Hmm.
and learning to go from A to the change. We call those the changes, which is A to D
Hmm.
to E. You
Hmm.
know, those that's how. So just a chord. That's if you find one up in your attic now, just learn a chord. It doesn't have to be an A chord. My first chord was A, but you can always find a chord and learn that chord, and from then you'll be okay.
I love it. I love it. The A to D to E, the 145 is world
Yes,
famous.
all
It's
famous.
world famous.
That's
And
right.
yeah, and I think you're right. I think just, in some ways you tune it and then start strumming, see what happens, and that will get you somewhere. I
And
in
that, well, the best way to learn if you find one now
Uh-huh.
is to go to live lesson masters.
Wait, wait. Is that by any chance where you're teaching? Is that
You know what? You know what? If you ask of me, I might be there, but I'm just telling you. I'm just saying. That's if you
well,
want to go.
that's right. Well, and actually, I'm going to want to put the link to it and also all of your social media for all of your many new fans. I want to put the link on the show notes page. So definitely, I want to make sure I have that before we leave, because no, because it's true. There are some people who learn on their own, but there are very
Yep.
few far between. A lot of people will need somebody to guide them, if only to guide them on technique that won't kill their hands. You know.
Right.
I
Right.
remember when I first started learning the guitar, my guitar teacher, who I just actually had on just recorded his podcast chat. Do you know a guitarist named Al Petaway? Have you ever heard of him?
Al Petaway.
Yeah, he's a
Sounds familiar.
he's
Yeah,
a
he sounds familiar.
yeah, he's a fingerstyle guitarist, and he's another Grammy winner like you. That's
Oh,
it. All you Grammy winners, you're a dime a dozen, right?
yeah,
No,
right.
uh,
So they're all over the place.
yeah. So yeah, and he gave me some lessons, and one of the first things he said to me was, "Stop pressing so hard. You're gonna kill yourself." And I thought that was lovely, and it helped
Yeah.
me learn. So a couple other things for the guitar heads in the group. What do you play now? What guitar do you play? What strings do you use? What pickups? And most importantly, what makes a guitar good to you? How do you know a guitar is a guitar you'll want to play?
My favorite guitars are Fender Stratocaster. That's my go-to, yeah, and I've been playing one particular guitar for quite a while now, and it's a Fender Strat. I think it's for the improv show, and I use light gauge strings, which is 009, and in the business we call them nines. So I use nines through 42. Not too light, but light enough. 11's too heavy for me right there with the nines, so I can bend a lot
Hmm.
and strum a lot. And I also play Duesenberg. I've been playing Duesenberg for quite a few years as well. And Duesenberg for, for some years now. And actually my red Duesenberg that I have here. Prince actually played that guitar. So
Prince played the guitar.
those
Nice.
are yeah, he played. He came on stage and he actually played my guitar for a few minutes and handed it back, and that
Wow.
stayed. Hmm.
That's very cool. That's
Hmm.
very cool.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just some guy. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Oh, goodness. Well, all right. So I I could keep talking to you all day, and I hope that you'll come back and be on the show again, because this has been such a delightful conversation.
Mm.
I want to ask you just a couple more questions, if it's okay with you. Um, what what are you curious about right now? What are you interested in, especially now, we're not where most of us are staying at home a lot. What's got you going, ooh, I want to learn more about this?
Social media.
Uh-huh.
I want to learn more about social media and connecting with people through social media, because it seems like, well, not seems like, it's definitely the way, in the way for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to get that going and reach out to more people, and trying to, because I've been kind of doing, I want to do what you're doing as well. I'm interested in like podcasts, or because I know so many people,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been in contact with so many people, and kind of in a way that, not just like in their band, or playing with them, or grew up with them, or I meet them in ways like kind of with the blind boys for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to talk to a lot of them, or you know so social media is what I'm kind of interested in doing, and I want to do more like recording. I'm interested like in the engineering part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a little late. Some of my friends are saying right now it's a little late for that.
Oh, why is that?
I don't know, because I'm so old.
Oh, no. No. The beauty of all the technology out there, you can you can pick that stuff right up and just and run with it. And because you're already an inquisitive soul, it's gonna, yeah, I have no doubt that if you want to do it, you'll do it. And podcasting, I'll make you the offer that I've made to Katie, and I helped her get her podcast up and running. When you're ready, I'm happy to help you get your podcast up and running. Not a problem.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, so I want to do more, more of that kind of stuff. And like I said, doing engineering, like recording, knowing knowing the board and stuff like that. That kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Well, because so that's what I'm kind of into now, and fascinated with this social media stuff, getting out to the fans.
Yeah, and it's a way of communicating and interacting with people who otherwise you'd never have the opportunity to interact with. So,
Hmm.
which is a wonderful thing. All right, well,
Yeah, a lot of
I
my students are from. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, a lot of my students are from like different places, like overseas, and they were fans. A lot of them are fans that
Hmm.
were calling in just to talk,
Hmm.
get my stories on how was it like, working with Tom Waits, and this and that. So it's a great way to be in touch with the fans, that even if we're on the road all the time, we
Hmm.
don't go back to that particular country for 2 years or 4 years sometimes,
Right.
the, it's another way to reach them until we get there.
Right. Absolutely. And it's a way to keep that relationship growing, which,
Hmm.
you know, and I'm going to encourage you to listen to next week's episode, because next week is going to be T. Morris, just so you know, and he wrote literally the book called Podcasting for Dummies. like
Wow.
like he is the author of that book. So, and he does a lot with social media, so I'm gonna definitely tag you when his episode comes out. It'll be out a week late
Mm.
after yours. But yeah, there's a lot to learn, and it's so amazing to me that we can reach out and connect with so many different people who otherwise we would never have access to and who would never have access to us. So I think that's lovely and wonderful. I have just one last question. And I do, real quickly, let me just say your social, your Twitter and your Instagram, your Twitter at twitter.com/JWILL 6-string. So Joey Williams 6-string. And your Instagram is instagram.com/JoeWill17. And I'm going to put those on, I'm going to put that on the show notes so that, and also with your lessons and everything, so that people will be able to get in touch with you and follow you. And is there anything else that you want people to know before I ask my last question? Any other words of wisdom or advice that you want to give?
I just want everybody to sort of think, love, listen, and try to understand one another. That's basically what we all need to kind of do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. Okay.
That's
well,
it.
that's a good one. And yeah, Joey, I want to thank you once again for being on the show. This has been such a treat. And as I said, I hope you'll come back. I have one last, oh, I'm losing you again. Oh no.
Oh, hello.
Oh, I can sort of hear you. Say again.
Okay. Yeah, hello.
Yeah. I know. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Right.
So I this is a strange little question, but I ask it of every guest I have. So I'm going to ask you too. And the last question that I have for you is, if you had an airplane that was going to skywrite something that the entire world could see, what would you say?
Oh, I have to skywrite what I just said. It'll be a big bold letters. Love, listen, try to understand one another.
And that is perfect. That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Joey, for joining me. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it.
Oh, well, it was so cool. And it's good talking to you again after so long.
I know. It's been a while. We need to do this again soon.
Yep, for sure. And
Well,
I'm going to be in touch about the podcast.
Oh, good. I hope you are. I hope you do. I'm happy to help. So, again, Joey, I want to thank you. And I want to say, if you have enjoyed this episode, if you're listening, get in touch, leave a review, find Joey Williams. You can find him on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm going to put all of this stuff in the show notes. He is a master musician and, as you can tell, a super terrific person. He's a wonderful creative man, and I'm so grateful. If you're enjoying these episodes, please leave a review of the show. Let me know what you're thinking. Comment, get in touch. Until next time, this is Isolde Trachtenberg for the Creative Mindset Podcast, and I send you all of my love. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Isolde Trachtenberg and is copyright 2021. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope. Until next time, remember to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind.